all the stakeholders are on a call, so we can start the weekly MSI demo meeting. And just a quick update, on a previous demo meeting, we demonstrated 2 out of, let me share my screen. On the previous demo meeting, we demonstrated 2 out of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 7 stories we have in a current milestone. So we demonstrated support negative threshold for backorder functionality and math inventory action. Proof of concept prepared by Ricardo and Alessandra. And most of the current week, we were preparing the MFTF tests for both of these stories, and also we provided quite a lot of documentation, which is now available on Magento MSI wiki. So we will show you update today what exactly tests were written and what the documentation were accompanying our functionality which was presented. Because in Magento 2, now it's very important not just provide the new functionality, but cover this functionality with different kind of tests, especially with MFTF 1. So Magento MSI is a pioneering project which accompany all the functionality with new acceptance testing. Using new MFTF framework, and also we document as much as possible all the functionality and all the feature set provided by MSI. So let's follow the agenda I described in MSI Slack channel, and now Lori will describe you the documentation written during this week, covering both of these stories and other stories we were talking, because we had an open grooming, so we have quite a bunch of updates for the documentation. I'm stop sharing my screen.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so as Igor has already discussed, the documentation, I'm trying to keep it in line with all updates that are occurring either in pull requests or in develop. So the documentation may at times be ahead a little bit with the development, but it will try to 100% match it as we go through milestone 2. You can find content through the wiki under the MSI user guide section. So if you're ever looking for that information, that's where this is located. So for the mass action tool updates, this has been overhauled based on last week's demo and some updates and discussions we've started having this week. As milestone 2 continues, you're going to see even more additions to this page, especially for the transfer inventory as that's being worked out. You will notice this very important section here. This is due to current functionality in develop and will update and change as we go through milestone 2. That gives you very important information to understand how default source and default stock will work, and the guidelines and the sort of the rules around it as you work with the mass actions. Highly recommend looking through this information to really best understand it before you use these tools. And again, these will change as the tool progresses. And I tried to include some screenshots here you'll see that are animated to also help our users better find items without cluttering this immensely. You can look through this. It covers everything from mass assigning products to new sources, transferring inventory to source, which includes the source item status as well as the quantity. In milestone 2, that's going to expand. And then unassigning product sources. If you were part of the demo last week, this is going to look very familiar, but we wanted to make sure that everyone was very much aware of this section. To help really highlight these pieces, I also updated the Getting Started with MSI, which usually is read right after installing or upgrading to MSI. You will notice that there's a new section on multi-source merchant and understanding default source and stock to give and highlight that information as early as possible. This information will probably move into its own section to help single source merchants expand their business and move into multi-sourcing. So you'll see a lot of best practices start to be added to this and expand. To further add to the documentation this week, this was updated last week and into this week for all of the back orders and the new updates for the negative out-of-stock threshold. It gives extensive examples, including some screenshots to really help provide examples and what you should expect to see as you work through this, the features and the new updates. And this information, as it's being updated, will also be updated in the global and product settings. So you'll see updates to this table as well as we go through milestone 2, as some of these features may change either from source or stock, or we'll have far more defined information so you really know what's going on under the covers. And finally, this week, I started updating some of the shipment and order management information. It's just a cleanup. It doesn't have any changes to current functionality, but in case you needed to show some of this info to others or you wanted to look through it, it does have some updates on walkthroughs as well as some screenshots. I've also started working on tickets for the next round of updates from development. That's it for my updates, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Now you guys see how Magento seriously treat the documentation process, and that all the new piece of software added to the code base now documented pretty clean with really good GIF animations. So you can see it all of this new documentation on MSI wiki page. So now let's go to another item in our agenda, and Ivan Pletnyov will launch the MFTF test for covering the functionality of mass inventory migration tool and negative backorders threshold. So Ivan, feel free to share your screen.
Hi, now I'm sharing my screen. Okay, I will start read MFTF test. One test about negative out of stock threshold, and 2 about assigned and unassigned sources via mass action. Start test about backorders. Okay, we log to admin panel, and first we assign a sales channel to stock main website. Now we go to, now we're creating a simple product, assigned category, and created source. Okay, go to now we open the product page and okay.
So in the scope of this test, we already made one assertion, and we checked that with a negative threshold, it's not possible to buy more quantity than actually than the amount of the saleable quantity, because before that, the backorder functionality actually meant that the number of product available is just infinite. But now with the negative threshold, the saleable quantity is finite, and and actually the check assertion to buy more products which is available in the negative threshold.
Okay, that's before actions on test. Okay. Now I'm start test about assign sources for simple products. Okay, now I assign 4 created sources to stock.
So this test demonstrates the assignment and the creation stock for several sources for products which were selected on a product grid. And after that, it demonstrates that the newly created source items with a zero quantity been created for all the sources which were checked.
Okay, let's start last test about unassigned sources from products.
So in the scope of this test, we will demonstrate that we will select products on a product grid, and we will unassign products for specified sources. And after that, the MSI functionality will drop the relationship between product and particular source, and actually drop the number of quantity. So we will literally remove existing source items, and the sellable quantity after that would be recalculated for all the stocks to which given sources were assigned to. So currently test makes all the preparation and pre-configuration. It takes some time because each MFTF test should prepare an environment for itself, and after the execution, it's supposed to clean up the environment. We do this to make the granularity of test and the atomicity of test, to prevent the situation when one test will affect other tests, not cleaning up the dirty environment and the data used for this particular test execution. This could affect other tests. That's why all the MFTF tests supposed to clean the data after itself. That's why you see so many preparation before the test execution and after the test execution. This is actually pretty common to all the acceptance tests. So here you see that sources selected for removal the source items. Here you see that one of the source been disabled, just to check that the source item which would be transferred, which would be removed, will also have the state out of stock.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you, Vanya.
Thanks.
So now I will share my screen and provide. So the test which Ivan just showed you, not all the tests we've written. So for example, you can see that we covered a lot of functionality with MFTF test, but taking into account that MFTF test needs some time to be executed. So just to prevent the situation when you would be bored looking at all our tests being executed, we show just several of those, but along with them, we have quite a lot of open pull requests covering different test scenarios. And now Slava will also show you how he created the test scenarios and describe them in a heap test. And for those test scenarios, we actually write this MFTF test. So now Slava, feel free to share your screen.
Hello, everybody. I will show you our heap test where we're working on writing scenario to cover functionality of MSI. And I opened a folder for this functionality of Backorder with negative quantity. And here you may see we have 12 scenario to check that different types of products, simple, virtual, and downloadable. They are working, not simple and, yes, and virtual. And they are working on, with this function of negative out of threshold with combination with Backorder. And I will not maybe take a lot of time to show you all steps of the test, but here we have like called here action word that is step like new source created, stock created, category created, then product itself created, and then we do our action. It's called when. For example, that you set negative out of stock threshold, you Backorder you set it before, and then you get sellable quantity on the stock, like 150, what you saw on MFTF test. And the same procedure we do for different type of product with weight and without weight. And also here we check that only XLF threshold is working as well. Another folder, it's about mass action on products. It's still on work. And also after yesterday grooming some new feature there on horizon to be added to this, because yesterday it was agreed that for transfer inventory to source, not only quantity will be transferred, but also auto stock status and some other things. And here you may see that there are tests for with several products, with different types of products, to assign product sources, to unassign product sources, to transfer to inventory, and also check that stock status is also transferred. And I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Slava. So now you see that along with creating new functionality for Magento, we are also carefully documented and cover with different kind of testing, because along with MFTF testing, along with acceptance testing, we also cover it. For example, here was a pull request which I merged yesterday, where Alessandra Ronchi provided integrational test for Backorder functionality, where he, on the level of integration test, covered different cases when the Backorder and the negative threshold is used, and covered it with PHP unit and the Magento integration testing framework. So also you can see here update current burn down after this week, and after the implementation of MFTF test and the documentation update. Here we agreed not to add the MFTF tickets to general burn down, and we are tracking them in a dedicated project, just to separate the business logic and the MFTF test, and to track updates separately. And also, just to mention one more time, that when you would be landed to the then hub, so you can do it from MSI roadmap. For example, here, it's very important to make sure that the filter for MSI part 2 is checked. I fixed the links for then hub board wherever it's possible, wherever I found, but just to make sure that you have this filter applicable, because having this filter, actually you will see the board for milestone 2. And actually, current board represents the actual state of deals, and the tickets which are beyond process now, and the tickets which are available for contributors. That's also an update for this week. So we updated our MSI roadmap. We updated our MSI commitment for milestone 2, and here you see all the tickets are estimated, and all of these tickets represent the backlog for milestone part 2. And also, last but not the least, today we published one more article, and this article about the module structure in Magento MSI, where I described actually why do we have in MSI 4 modules instead of 1. So module for API contracts, module for implementation, module for admin UI, and for front-end UI. So here you can see this article which describes the modularity for which is the idea described here are applicable for all Magento 2, not just for MSI, but you can see the proper implementation of these ideas currently just in MSI. So here, for example, you can see that we have 3 modules: inventory, admin UI, and inventory API. But usually in Magento, for example, you'll just see one module, for example, catalog. But there are no catalog admin UI, catalog API. So all the logic belonging to different application layers, like presentation layer, like layer of service contract, and the layer of business logic. All of this logic now located in one module. But in MSI, we applied the single responsibility principle for on the module level. That's why we end up having this structure. And in this article, I describe all the pros we are given, and the possibility how easily MSI could be extended or customized by third-party developers. So here you can see it. And I decided to do this because especially recently there were several questions about why do we have this module structure, what's the pros, what's the benefits we get using this module structure, and also this new module structure, especially having dedicated API modules, would be described soon as an architectural recommended way for all Magento 2 design. So I recommend you to look through this article, because it would be useful not just for those who follow MSI, but for those who write for those who want to write the proper modular solution based on Magento 2. So that's actually all from my side, and that's probably all for today's demo. If there are any open question, we would be ready to answer them. If not, thank you guys for your time, and see you in a week, the same time. We will show you something interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.